Hello, 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 and we are back after quite a long gap with HMO Heroes. And tonight's guest is very special. We have got TJ Patel, who's going to talk about her experiences as a new HMO hero, buying, sourcing, buying, financing, refurbishing, and tenanting her very first HMO. And so, welcome to the show, TJ.
Thank you for having me here, Stephanie.
I'm really looking forward to diving in with you tonight.
Me too.
I know that even experienced ones amongst us will get a few nuggets, and for new people, this will be like gold dust because it hasn't been too long since you started. So before we actually dive in and talk about this particular deal, let's learn a little bit about you. Who is TJ Patel?
Oh well, that's a great question. So to let everybody know, my background is actually in technology sales. So I studied a joint honours in BA, BSc, Business and Information Technology. I've been working in technology as a salesperson for the last 15 years, probably. So I've got a huge passion for technology, mainly sell hardware, software, and services to corporate clients and so forth. So really big, large enterprises and really small, to the other end of the scale with really small kind of charities that kind of need to secure their networks, essentially, is where my focus has been in the last 7 years. So that's my background. I am still working full time. So I am doing this business again, for which I have a passion in property. I just never did anything about it until quite recently. Yeah. That's a little bit about me.
Fantastic, TJ. I was just scribbling down now. I hadn't realised you were still full-time in your other job because I see you're so visible on social media and in property, and I've just been really loving the sort of things that you're saying. And then when you showed us your first deal, I thought I would have you on. So well done you in managing to balance everything between this and your other job. So Tell us what first turned you onto property. When did that light bulb moment happen and you sort of went?
Yeah, so this will give you a little bit more of an insight into myself and my background, my history way before my technology career, really. So my passion for property actually started from a very negative environment. So I grew up in a very toxic environment. Without boring you with the details, it was so toxic that the whole family as a whole kind of suffered from mental, my mom in particular, domestic, experience, violence experience, and also like emotional stress, really. So because of that, sort of me being the eldest child, I kind of somehow took it upon myself to better our situation because I could see that, number one, that environment wasn't a great environment to flourish in, but number two, none of us could actually move on with our lives and do what we really wanted to do. We couldn't even think about what it is we wanted to do, if that makes sense. So I had a passion for property. So cut a long story short, what had happened was, whilst I was helping my mum and our family come out of that negative situation, which went on for many years, what actually ended up happening was I was adamant that I wanted to help my mum buy our family home off my father. So that's basically, with the passion that I had in property, and I was kind of looking around in the marketplace going, oh, this looks really fascinating. I actually helped my mum buy our family home, basically. So that's basically my background as to why I love property. It gave us a sense of security, which we hadn't had for many years. And that's basically where it started. And
it's just a moving story.
Yeah. Thank you. I also kind of, as those battles were going on, I was actually suffering with my very own battles because I was diagnosed asthmatic at 2 years old, and so severe that I actually was in and out of hospital constantly, and have actually met my death, if you will, as dreadful as that sounds, twice before the age of 18. So through that motion, there is a desire, a will, and a tenacious attitude that there is a better way. So I overcame all of that when I helped my mum buy our family home. I, on the side of that, actually was saving up for my very own property as well. And I completed on that in September 2015, I think it was.
Right, yeah.
And then I sat here and I kind of just took some time out and really thought about what I wanted to do, because I never had that opportunity beforehand because of all the struggles that I was helping our family to get through. I came across a number of property education providers, went along to one of them, if you will, and invested in myself, and here we are. This is why I'm doing the business that I'm doing. So
fantastic. I just really admire how so often you speak to people and they've been through so much adversity, but in your case you're so upbeat and positive, and sort of I would never have thought that would have been your story. So huge kudos to you, because it can be so hard to get out of that situation.
Absolutely.
What I love about property and business in general is it can really change your life. So it's great to get that background to you, and well done on everything that you managed to do. So coming on to this particular deal, so how long ago was it you first found all the property training?
I started February end of February 2017 was when I started my training. And within about 6 or 8 months, I completed that. But I'm one of these impatient people.
Yeah.
So I kind of started a lot of the groundwork as I was training and as I was getting that knowledge and gaining that knowledge.
Yeah.
It was a top up of what I already knew about the property market, where I will say that I've received value from the investment I made in myself.
Yeah.
Is that I've learned that there's so many variations of how you can buy or control property, if you will, that I wouldn't have known without that education.
Absolutely. It's great to get that window on that world that you would never have imagined. So you started off in 2017, you spent a few months learning everything. So and it's only been sort of a year and a half since then. So move us on to then what happened over the next 18 months.
So I was on a really high point, if you will, at the back end of 2017. I'd actually secured my first deal in 2017. It was a 2-bed flat in the East Midlands, and I had actually also had a 12-month contract already sort of ready to sign, if you will, from the tenants prior to exchange and completion and all of that kind of good stuff, if you will. There wasn't much of a refurb to be done on that one, and it was in city centre, so it was a great location. And I thought, you know what, by that time I'd remortgaged my own property, and I had money, and I was going to go and buy a buy-to-let anyway, just before I got my education. Of course, I learned how to do it in a more professional way, if you will, and so I was able to use those funds a lot more efficiently. With that education, which is why I cannot stress enough that if anyone's getting involved in any form of property, education is very, very key.
So explain to us what you mean by you were able to use the money more efficiently. So what would you have done if you hadn't been educated, and what did you do?
Yeah, great question. So I would have just gone down the buy-to-let route. Very simple, because I already knew how that works. So I would have probably bought something near to where I live, which would have soaked up the entire fund that I took out from the remortgage. Whereby I've gone a little bit away from my area, I've only had to use some of that as a percentage, which means I still have money left over to actually look for something else. So yeah, that's the whole point of education, I would say. It's just how you use that money efficiently. So I secured that deal. We had a 12-month contract in place, and whilst that was going on, I actually then secured my deal number 2 early 2018. That one was actually a flip, but it was a flip to add an extension to the side of the house. And then I had a third deal end of February 2018, which was going to be a student HMO.
And that's the one that we're talking about.
No, it's actually not. Because what had happened, so I was on a high by end of February 2018, because all those three deals were, number one, going to get me in a position to buy back some of my full-time work that I do and buy back some of my days.
Yeah.
But number two, it was going to actually give me the opportunity by July 2018 to actually hit my goal in earning the cash flow that I wanted to earn from those properties.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, one by one, for one reason or another, they all kind of fell through.
Yeah.
I came to the end of May, and I was literally had to start all over again.
Yeah.
And that was quite a frustrating.
It is so frustrating when your deals fall through. Oh my gosh! So you had three deals, and you got all, and sometimes you have to spend a lot of money to get to the position that deals fall through.
Well, yeah, that's the other part. I mean, obviously, I lost the money that I'd spent on the conveyancing process of doing the searches and things like that, really. So, yeah.
So where are we now? We're in May 2018?
19.
No, I mean...
Oh, sorry, yes, May 20th, 2018, yes, correct.
Yeah, okay.
So,
go on.
Yeah, no, so yeah, that was it. You know, May 2018, I was actually back coming off a 5-day trip away, just for a little sort of celebration, if you will, that, you know, I had stuff that was about to become complete, and yeah, they all fell through on the last day, really, on my way back. So I was very stressed, completely and utterly down and out, and yeah.
So tell us when did you get the deal that went through?
The deal so I then actually reflected on what I could have done better. Obviously, a lot of that was out of my control for the various different reasons. So, you know, we had everything from an overexposure on the development from a lending perspective, with the 2-bed flat that I had secured in end of 2017, to the vendor on the HMO suddenly wanting to renegotiate and wanting me to pay at least £5,000 more on the HMO. And of course, looking at the numbers, it would have just wiped out any profit. It just wouldn't have made sense. So it was one of those situations where I had to make a business decision as a professional to actually walk away from it, and not make an emotional decision, which a lot of people I know sometimes get roped into, you know, easily.
So easy to do that.
So I kind of had a reflective period. I didn't do a lot for the next month or so. I just needed to gather my thoughts, try and refocus, model how I start again. Am I going to do the same sort of stuff, or am I going to focus on something else? And what then actually happened is, by that time I built enough of a network around me in the areas that I was working in East Midlands. And actually what happened was, one of my contacts came to me with a proposition around serviced accommodation. And so my first deal actually ended up being a rent to service accommodation in September of 2018. So that's running all fine and well right now. And yeah, you know, we've been running for about 8
years. I'm a bit skeptical about the serviced accommodation. So how, because I feel that the costs are massive, the operational issues are, you know, not insignificant either, and then the profits oftentimes can be less than with an HMO. So and the risk is more, because obviously you haven't got certainty about how often you're going to fill the rooms and etc. So how's that really worked out for you, numbers wise?
I mean, for me, it's worked out great. We started off slow because we started off in the low season. So that's what you have to really be mindful of, is that what tends to happen, and what I've seen so far in the ones that I have up and running, is number one, they have to be in city centres, because outside of that, I don't really see it happening. The demand really is in the city centres from my point of view and my personal experience so far.
Where is that? What area, TJ, again?
East Midlands.
Oh, right. Okay. I don't think we have discussed.
So that's like number one. Secondly, what tends to happen is you tend to make quite good sums of money, both from a revenue and net perspective, in your high season months, which I would typically say is between start of April to mid-November, potentially. So you'll have an opportunity then to kind of make as much profit in that high season, because there's a lot of demand. And in the low season, you may earn less of a net, but if you've worked out in that high season how much to adjust your nightly rates, then across the 12 months, you should be hitting a certain amount of money at the end of the year. Yes, you may not get consistent cash flow on a monthly basis like you would at HMO. And, it differs from month to month. But overall, if you added it all up over 12 months, then divided it by 12, even though you're not getting it, you will see what you're consistent.
That's interesting. So TJ, I'm interested because lots of people ask me, and they come on Rent to Rent Kickstart, and they say that they want to do it for SA, because SA service departments are easier to source, because 2 and 3 bed flats and houses are everywhere.
Absolutely.
What tips would you give to somebody who wants to do rent to?
I would say team up with someone that has already been doing this for a number of years, because their expertise will help you to very quickly add to the education that you might have gained yourself in the practicality of how one operates. So again, this is what I've done in my model, because of all the things that you mentioned, Stephanie. It is a very volatile, risky business, if you will. You're going in it for the first time, and you may have all the knowledge, but unless you've actually been through the process, it's sometimes very different to the theory that we learn in class. So yeah, that would be my number one tip. Team up with someone that already is successful. So all of my essays are managed out, so I pay a management fee. I don't deal with any day-to-day operation. I am purely sitting here with passive income.
That's great. So is that a private person or a company? I mean, they might have a company, but is it an individual who has their own?
It's an individual. It's a company, but yeah, it's backed by 2 individuals, yes.
That's the perfect, I think, situation. Who they're managing a few, but not like hundreds, sort of thing. Yeah. Great. Okay. That's good to know. And is it near you, the service department?
No, they're in East Midlands. I'm based by Heathrow in London.
Oh, right. Okay.
They're over 100 miles away.
Okay. Great. That's good to know as well, that you've leveraged all that.
Do your due diligence really on the people that you are potentially going to work with. Obviously, that's another sort of tip number 2, I would say.
And did you have to invest in doing up the property first?
Yeah.
And approximately how much did you need to put in?
£6,000.
Okay, that's kind of, yeah. And also, I suppose, because it's now fully leveraged out, and how long have you got it for?
I've had it since September last year.
And how long's the contract term?
3 years.
So you've got it for 3 years to make the cash back. And on average, so far, what's your average profit after? Because you've got management costs, so that obviously squashes. But at least it's totally passive. So
yeah, I do zero work, and when I say zero work, my only involvement from a month-to-month basis is to check the occupancy level on a report that my company partner provides for me, and maybe question why the nightly rates have been the nightly rates. But really, other than that, I don't really get involved in anything. So when we talk about passive income, it is 110% true passive income.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, they do day-to-day operations and running around and whatever else that may be involved in that. So yeah.
Okay. And when do you start making a profit? I mean, have paid off the $6,000?
So hopefully we are on track. I'm hoping by between the I'd say between the 14th month and the 18th month mark is when we break in.
Okay. I think when you're talking about something that's passive, where you don't have to put your time in, I mean, anything's a bonus, isn't it, really?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Initial investment and everything's also a learning experience. So that was good. I'm glad that you talked about all that. And then was it the HMO?
Yes, then it was a HMO. So I completed on the HMO. So the HMO was kind of going through conveyancing process in the background whilst I was doing the service accommodation sort of checks, if you will. And I completed on that HMO December, just before Christmas.
Okay, let's talk about how you found it.
Yes.
How did you source it, first of all?
I actually used a sourcer in this.
Right. And where is the HMO?
It's in Rotheram, so South Yorkshire.
Right, okay.
So again, a million miles away.
Yeah. So you used the sourcer. What was that? How did you come across them? What was the experience like? Tell me all about it.
Yeah, interestingly enough, again, through just networking, which is kind of my number one skill, being the salesperson that I am in my career. I kind of looked at that reflection point that I had at the back end of June 2018 when all those deals fell through. I kind of thought, right, what's my number one skill and how can I leverage that to its maximum potential? So I just started sort of getting back in touch with a lot of the people that I'd networked with over the course of the period that I've been in the professional property environment. Came across a sourcer that was working in the area at the time. And we got talking. He started sending me sort of deals that came through, none of which initially really worked for what I was trying to, for what my business model was, if you will, and what I was trying to achieve.
What were you trying to achieve?
Well, I needed, at least for me personally, I needed a net profit for a HMO above the 800 per calendar month mark. For me personally, because
for how many bedrooms?
For 4 bedrooms.
Okay.
So so that was mine, and none of the things he had found up until the point that we obviously completed on the one that we did was really working out. But we finally found one that did, and we completed on it December 2018. The source, to answer your question, Stephanie, the sourcing part of it was quite a good experience in how, again, if we go back to the fact that for me, I'm not in property necessarily to have to give myself another job, if you will.
Yes.
My sort of whole emphasis of why I'm doing this is just to build some security for myself so that I can do other things that I personally have wanted to do for a very long time. One of which is travel. And obviously I need to have financial resource to sustain what I've built so far in the properties that I have personally as residential. So
yeah. Great. So you found this property, you had a great experience with your sourcer. How much was your sourcing fee for it?
My sourcing fee was £3,000.
Okay. And how much was the property?
The property was $85,000 that I bought it for.
And tell us about the property. I mean, was it already an HMO? How many bedrooms? How much was the refurb and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a 3-bed semi-detached house originally. It was in a unloved state, if you will. The nice thing about it was that although it was in an unloved state, number one, obviously that's the type of property I'd want to look for anyway, because it means an opportunity for me to add value and actually transform it into a quality home. And secondly, the nice thing, the advantage that this one particularly had was that the previous owners had already actually added a side extension to it.
Ooh.
So buying it at the level that I did, I didn't really have to then, you know, find resource to actually fund something like an extension, which may have been required if it wasn't already there.
So before we come to the refurb, the other thing that people can struggle with, especially if it's the first time they're buying an HMO, although you did have a buy-to-let previous, yeah, you already had your buy-to-let. So tell me about financing and how that process went.
Yeah, so financing wise, I obviously did the normal thing and spoke to a few brokers prior to that anyway, because obviously I had those 3 deals that kind of fell through. So I was already on I already had several relationships with brokers. The advice that I was getting at the time, because I'd obviously not been a HMO landlord before, which is always a struggle for many people, what they tend to do is they kind of find a product that sort of sits in between a buy-to-let and a HMO mortgage, if you will. So that's the kind of product that I went for. So
what product is that?
Well, what happens is it is a buy-to-let mortgage. So when you get your revaluation done, it's on a bricks and mortar valuation, but they have the ability on this product to top up the rental percentage.
Yeah.
So like a normal buy-to-let would get, I think it's 125% upon your annual earnings. On this product, I can get 145%. So I'll get the bricks and mortar revaluation plus the 145% against the annual income. And then that will help to bring out as much money as we possibly can.
That sounds really good. So which company was that, the financing?
That was, oh gosh, now you're testing me, aren't you?
Well, you can always...
I honestly don't remember.
Yeah, you spoke to so many after all those.
Yeah, they've all merged into one.
Okay, so, and would you recommend your broker?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I would also recommend, personally speaking, to have more than one. Because what I've found out is that I actually have 3, by the way. What I find is that some of them, although all 3 have access to whole of market per se, sometimes one of them will always be able to find a slightly better product than somebody else. So yes, it's more work for you, but if you can find a better product that works for what your long-term plan is, if you will, it's better to go with that broker. And it's always nice to get feedback from different brokers as well.
But the problem we found with that is that when we were going on these commercial finance, really there's so much information that you have to get the offer that I can't imagine doing that with one broker and then doing it with another broker, and they won't sort of speak to you anyway, the lenders, if they see that you're looking via more than one broker.
Yeah, so I'd just make a point on that. When I'm speaking to my 3 brokers, they don't apply for anything. They just ask for the information that you would need to send for application, and they will do the background search and then come back to you with their findings.
Okay, well, I found that was very different to actually what happened later on. So when they come back to you with their findings, okay, everything looks amazing, and then you go ahead and it's still a good deal, but it's not amazing.
That's
so
right.
It's very different when you go forward than when you just start off. But that's a great tip. So thanks for that with financing.
Stephanie, I'm really sorry. I've got a battery issue here. I'm going to have to go and plug in, otherwise we're going to get cut off.
Okay, yeah, go and plug in. We don't want to lose you. Okay, we'll just wait for you, because I think this is super valuable information, because these are I hear people asking.
I should have actually checked this before I came on.
Buying their first HMO, how to finance it, can you get an HMO mortgage if you don't have, or can you get lending if you don't have previous HMO experience, although in this case, admittedly, CJ at the beginning was buying a buy-to-let to refurb into HMO. So you've got the financing sorted, and was it a lengthy process?
Was it a lengthy process? No, actually, the brokers that I work with, I don't really have to fill in any applications or anything like that. I literally just send the list of stuff that they need. So, you know, your usual typical things like 3 months bank statements, your 3 pay slips, so on and so forth. And then they go off and do everything. So again, it's, I guess from my perspective, it's quite easy. I can imagine if you're doing applications, it's a bit lengthier, but no, it wasn't lengthy at all.
Well, sending the information is one thing. It's what happens at the other end, what they do with the information that seems to take time. But anyway, good that you got your finance saying it was well, I won't say speedy, but it was okay with the process.
Yeah, I just quickly touch upon that. Obviously, the broker that you work with, you're never going to be able to figure out from the outset how quick they can be. But if they're not quick and you're not getting that communication that you expect, then change the broker. It really is as simple as that. You know, all 3 of my brokers are so keen. They've kind of got a bit of an entrepreneurial mindset themselves. So I guess because of that mindset, they understand that it has to be quite quick for us.
Well, I found it wasn't so much the brokers as the actual lenders.
Yes.
Who take a lot of time, and not only that, change their minds. So that you send the information, yes, everything's okay, we're moving forwards. And then in our case, the day of completion, they asked for all the ASTs to be reissued in a different name because the seller was doing it back in the day as a personal thing, but he sort of had this sort of sole trader company name that he was using on the ASTs.
Gotcha.
Selling the property in his personal name because this company doesn't exist as a legal entity because it's not a limited company, it's a sole trader. And so all of his ASTs were in this company name. Anyway, I'm diverting, but what I'm saying is that's the lender caused all of these delays because although they'd had this information for months, they waited until the day of completion when it should have just been checking over to rubber stamp to go through.
You've actually just reminded me of something. So I had a little glitch, not as probably dire as your situation because we were nowhere near completion at the point. But we had a situation where I had filled in all the direct debit details and all of that kind of stuff. And what had happened between when I'd sent all that information and we were just about to exchange was the lender had actually changed their service number for taking those direct debits in. And so I had to go through a process of filling out that form again. And of course, I was away for that week with my work stuff.
Yeah.
A bit hairy, but
there's lots of little glitches, but you got there and you now got this property, it's financed. So what were your plans? You bought it for £85,000. Tell us about the refurb.
Yeah, so I always like to work on a worst case scenario. So I have a worst case and a best case. My best case was that I could turn it into a 5-bed, which would be a bonus. But my worst case was actually, does the numbers work on a 4-bed HMO? So I spent the money, which was around about the 40k mark, to produce 5 beds. But the 5th bed could easily be turned into a lounge if somebody, if the sort of sign off comes in and says, right, this is not going to work as a 5-bed and it actually has to be a 4-bed due to.
What do you mean the sign off?
So when you get to a 5-bed, you'd probably have to have a HMO officer come out and actually, inspect the property to see whether it's worthy of a 5-bed. And there's got to be
licensing. And did licensing come and say?
No, well, actually what happened was my letting agent was really good and they've got a compliance department in that letting agent. So they actually got ahead of the officer coming out. And they actually inspected it themselves and they basically confirmed that it's not going to pass as a 5-bed, so we have to go to 4.
Why? Was it some room size, bedroom size?
Yes. Yeah, one of the bedrooms is a little bit smaller than what is required if you want it to have a 5-bed with a kitchen diner.
Okay, that's fine. And is it one shower?
No, I've got 2 en-suites and 1 shared.
OMG, so that should be renting all day long.
Yeah.
You're all in for 125k plus buying costs, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And what's it been like? You're obviously getting that managed.
Yeah.
By a letting agent.
Absolutely.
Tell us how that's been with the tenanting and so on.
Again, it's been great. It was a bit hairy in the beginning. I had to swap letting agents because the first one wasn't doing very well. So I very quickly changed within a matter of weeks, really. Because what was happening was I was getting a lot of interest, getting a lot of kind of, yes, we love this, we see how it's different, you know, so on and so forth. But I felt the letting agent wasn't being proactive with the follow-up. That's the sense I was getting. And so I made a decision to change. The new letting agent has been fantastic. Aside from obviously mentioning that they've helped me realise that actually it's not licensable and it has to be a 4-bed. They've been very quick with their communications. I speak to them on email and phone like literally 2 or 3 times a week.
That doesn't sound good. What are you speaking to them about?
Oh, they just update me with the tenants that have obviously applied and what's happening. So they just keep me updated with the process of the tenancy that's been taken up. So that's all.
Yeah, cool. And how long ago did it complete? Sorry, you finished the refurb and people started moving in?
About a month ago.
Oh, that's why the communication's a lot. And is it full now?
We've got one more room to fill.
Okay, cool. Well, and what rents are you getting?
They're all varying different ones, but they, on average per room, is $350 for the en-suites. And then the one that is slightly on the smaller side is $325. Wow,
at $350 for an ensuite, that's cheap even for like Wales. That's mega. So yeah, well, so altogether your gross rent on a monthly basis would be?
Great question.
700 plus 320.
Yeah, so it's 350 times 3. I'll just do it quickly here.
1,050.
Should have been more prepared for this.
No, 1,050 plus 320, 1,070. No, 1,300 and 1,300.
Yeah, 1,300 and just over 1,350.
Yeah, cool. And well, after all the bills, do you get 800?
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, but even if it was a bit less for a 4-bed, it's still a good cash flow, isn't it? I mean, even if it were 700 or what have you, by the time you've paid the letting agent and the other bits and pieces, bits of maintenance and all the rest of the other bits and pieces, it might even come down a bit lower, but it's still a good cash flow on a property that costs 85 and that you've refurbed at 225. So let's talk about the refurb process first of all, because obviously you're doing it long distance.
Yes.
So tell me about how you found your builders, how you managed that process, how it all went off, and any tips you would give. Well, tell us about your first.
Yeah. So so the saucer was supposed to also do project management. Wasn't doing very well in the beginning, and I ended up having to let him go after 2 weeks because what was promised to be done over 2 weeks actually wasn't happening. So so basically, I let him go. And I actually took over project management myself. I was able to find a builder quite quickly, but they couldn't actually start for another 2 weeks.
That's the thing with builders, good builders.
Yeah, great builders. But once they did, it was a smooth process. A lot of our communication was through video, phone call, WhatsApp. So I'd get a weekly video report through WhatsApp. Prior to that, we had a schedule which we'd agreed over a 9-week period to say, right, week 1 XYZ is going to happen, and so forth. And then I only really went up there on 3 pivotal points basically, just to check the progress in its physical format. And again, it was pretty smooth going, really. That's yeah, it's coming in.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a pretty smooth process from that period on.
Fantastic. No, I love this because the idea of having a refurb going on at a distance, because my sister Nicky does all the refurbs. She gives this spreadsheet. Honestly, the detail on it is ridiculous about what they should do with the wall furniture, door furniture, and you know, just say paint the room. It does. But obviously she's built that up over time. So did you have someone help you put that original spreadsheet together? Was that your first refurb, or had you done refurbs before?
No, I'm actually a bit of a control freak, if I may say so. So all of what you've mentioned, your sister kind of built up over time, I already was ahead of the game on that, because I had written on a piece of paper, right, in room 1, this is a colour that needs to go on this wall. This is a colour that needs to go on that wall. This is where the bed's going. I will have drawn, you know, those 3 pivotal times that I was there, I would have drawn all over the walls to say, right, this is where the kitchen's going, this is where the hob's going. Even though they have the plan from the kitchen provider, it's all
nothing to chance.
Nothing to chance, absolutely. And that goes back to why I feel that I probably had a smoother process than what I hear from a lot of communities, and what the experience has been for other like people that are obviously doing HMOs.
No, kudos. You need that really detailed document, and a schedule, and obviously a payment schedule, and an agreement. And so well done you that you managed to do all that in that way at a distance and get a great result.
And I'll just mention one thing in terms of design, because obviously you can't expect a builder to kind of have a design sense, if you will. So I did have a little bit of a disagreement, if you will, with my contractor, as great as they were. And I will mention them again, by the way. They're absolutely fantastic. But one of the sort of challenges we had, and where we kind of disagreed, was where we decided to put the new kitchen. There were kind of 2 windows on the back wall. One of them, in my view, should have been removed, because the kitchen wall units at the top kind of go halfway into that window. Obviously, from a aesthetic point of view, it's not great. So we had a bit of a disagreement. In the end, obviously, they did as I advised. But again, it just goes to show that if you don't direct and give that detail, you can't expect the sort of builder that you employ to actually
do that for you. Exactly. I think don't expect anything, just detail everything, and it's nothing's left to chance. Okay, so brilliant work on the refurb then, and then you're coming. You had your agent, and you came on to the end of it, really. And all with your own cash. So any tips that you would give to anybody who's now thinking, right, I want to get my first HMO and, you know, go on that ride?
My biggest tip would be just go for it. You know, you can spend all day, every day looking at the regulations, looking at the different things that you've got to adhere to in terms of creating HMOs. But if you're not actually doing anything, then you're missing the sort of part that you will only learn by going through the practical process. So I'm a massive fan of that. You know, most people that go into HMOs will have learned how you can do one, and you will have about 70 to 80% of the knowledge, but it's the 20% that sets you back. And then you're sitting there thinking, I don't have
the mindset, isn't it? Because you know what to do. So on that side of things, because you were in a situation where, you know, you'd had 3 deals fall through. What suggestions do you give to people for that staying on track mindset?
I do like a morning ritual for myself, if you will, which is inspired by Miracle Morning, How Rod. So I don't follow what they mention in that book to the T, but I've taken snippets of it and kind of formed my own morning ritual, if you will. Obviously, a part of that is daily affirmations, meditation, exercise. I'm now at the stage where I also kind of prepare a little bit from the night before. So I'm a massive night owl. So I've had to retrain going to sleep earlier so that I can make sure I'm up in time the next morning. And it really does work. So I've kind of added that. I do goal setting in the morning now as well. So the night before sleep and the goal setting are sort of the new variants to my morning ritual. But yeah, I kind of, that I think, I don't even think I know was my savior when I was in that frustrating period after those 3 deals passed by. So easy to go back to the comfortable zone that where you're earning. I earn quite a good, decent wage through my career, but it's not where I want to stay. So yeah.
That is perfect. Do you know what, TJ? And I did not know this about you, but you're so focused.
I am focused, yeah.
You've got the big picture, but you've also got the detail side, which is a great combo. Yeah. So I love that with the Miracle Morning. I'll pop the link to that book underneath when I put the video up. And the other thing that I really got from you through what you've been saying, well, I'm trying to do 2 questions, so I'll ask the first one. And the first one is, what's next for TJ?
Well, I've actually got 4 deals that I'm kind of currently going through at the moment. So 2 out of the 4 are still in negotiation. So we're still trying to make it work for parties involved. I had something accepted last week, which will actually be a small development, if you will. So what we're proposing to do with that one is actually build a proper 2nd-story structure on the existing house dwelling and actually take it from a 2-bedroom property to a 4-bedroom property.
Nice. Yeah.
So
has it got land around it then?
Not as much. It's got a nice garden. It's not a massive garden, but everything structure-wise is upwards. So we're not doing anything sort of around or behind or anything like that. It's all upwards.
Nice.
And that's the plan for that.
What are you not sure yet whether it's going to go? Are you flipping it to a family home, or are you keeping it as an HMO, or what's the plan?
So exit strategies are always there for the hold, but the plan A is to flip it to a family home.
That's why I was asking about the garden, because you can get a better price on them when they've got a little, especially at 4 beds. That's when the garden sort of starts to come into play. No, that sounds like a great plan. So when you say we, who is that?
I'm working with joint venture partners on that. So one of my key successes were actually raising 6 figures through that joint venture partnership.
Fantastic.
Earlier on this year. So that's helped massively in what my plan for 2019 was. Yeah. And we're working together.
I really love that, because you just started properly in property. I mean, you trained a bit in 2017, then you started properly in 2018, and now in 2019 you've got a joint venture partner over £100,000. So I know that people's ears will be pricking up at this. So how did you do it? What tips?
Again, a lot of it is to do with consistency. So there was a lot of time, month after month, I was advertising the fact that I'm looking for funds, but I was just getting no. But I just continued to advertise and kind of explain what I'm proposing to do, what my plans are, and just being completely transparent with the people that I then have those meetings with. I also kind of I help out at 2 sort of local networking meetings. So that's obviously been a ground for me to advertise as well, if you will, or rather not really advertise, I should say, that's the wrong term. It's share what I'm doing. That has obviously built a pool of people, if you will, that are talking to me at the moment. We're in building relationship mode. But again, I guess you have to understand from the person who will be investing with you that if they're going to be parting with a lot of cash. They have to be able to trust the person they're working with.
Exactly. And I think what really comes across is you're very focused and very detailed. Also, you've now got a track record. You've got all those before and afters and that whole process to show to new people who are coming in. And also, you've got some great ideas there going to, I don't think, not that wouldn't necessarily come to everyone to do that sort of thing. So I think that's some real strong learnings. And the other thing you've got going for you is people usually are scared to sell or even tell people what they're doing, because they don't want their friends, family, relations, even minor acquaintances to think badly of them for being on Facebook saying about what they're doing in property. What do you think allows you to be able to keep doing that consistently when you know that people must be criticizing, because people always will criticize?
Fantastic question. A lot of that goes back to my negative environment. I grew up on criticism, and had it not been for what I didn't know at the time was my mindset and the positive outlook that I try and look at, and not getting to a position where really criticism is a result of the fact that they don't want to look internally about themselves and kind of grow or develop themselves, and it's not really about you. Once you can understand that and go past that and almost have a don't care attitude, it really is just about let the world criticize, be mindful of why you're doing this, have a strong why, and things like that, and always reflect on that why. I mean, again, partly what I do is anytime that I feel like giving up, I go back to my why and I understand why I'm doing this, and it's that that gives me the strength to move on, as well as my environment that I had before, in my young age.
These are brilliant tips, and I was very different actually, because I was A, very shy, B, I would hate anyone looking at me. I hated even for people to be disagreeing with me or think that I'm doing anything wrong or that they don't like or anything. So I was very, very timid originally about putting anything out there. But I think it's just because I've got to a certain age, and also I've developed some of the mindset that you're talking about. And I will put on my profile, okay, this is what we're doing, and put it out there and send emails and do all of the other things that, I used to shy away from, because at the end of the day, what I've come to realize, as you said, whatever you do, somebody won't like it. And actually, the more you're doing that's positive and moving forward, people definitely won't like it, because they feel that it's a criticism of whatever they're doing, even though you don't even, you're only thinking about your progress and helping other people who want to move forward with you. So it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you and have you on the show. And I think it will be so beneficial, because we have lots of people within the group who are at that stage in the HMO Heroes Facebook group, who are at that stage of just starting out in HMO investment, and the knowledge bombs that you've dropped about, the financing, the refurb, and also importantly the mindset, have been invaluable. And as we bring this to an end, TJ, is there anything that you just want to leave people with?
Again, it's probably just repeating myself. Action and mindset are like the two key things that I think stop a lot of people from moving forward and progressing. You're never going to know 100% whether a deal works, because everything can look great on paper and you could have done all the models and followed all the processes that you've learned, but until you actually go through the process, it means nothing in essence.
Yeah.
So be careful, work on your mindset, constantly develop yourself, and I would say do something in the morning, because the entrepreneurs of this world, regardless of what you're doing, obviously we're talking about property, but the entrepreneurs of this world really sort of see a great outcome from the fact that they are up way before anybody else is. So I wake up between 4 a.m. to 5.
Oh, wow.
You
Wow,
know,
that is early.
which started off as 5:30, but because I do what I do the night before now, I naturally wake up sometimes at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I don't need an alarm clock or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I know how many hours of sleep that I need. So I adjust myself and develop myself to go to sleep the night before at a certain time. Which helps me to naturally wake up in the morning. So yeah,
what time do you have to go to bed to get up at 4?
I personally have to go to bed at about 10:30 at the latest. That doesn't always work because, like I said, I help out at networking events, and as you know, evening networking events go into the midnight. But the point being, if you do more days than not, then obviously you build up a consistent level of getting up in the morning, and yeah.
Fantastic, TJ. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Hang on there while I say the goodbyes. Thank you all for watching HMO Heroes. If you've enjoyed this show and got things from it, give us a thumbs up underneath. Give TJ a comment. And of course, ask any questions that you've got. And I'm sure that TJ will be able to come back on and answer them for you. So it's bye from TJ and bye from me. I'll see you soon, guys.